Hello and welcome to another week of the Creative Cowshed. Today we are talking about something that I think for small business owners, actually for employed people as well, because I know I was bad at this when I was employed as well. Taking time out is a hot and potentially contentious topic. So we thought we'd touch upon this because actually there's two sides to it. I suppose it's a slight admitting / just discussing what the challenges can be, but then also looking at how we can try and create that time out and still have a functioning business if you're not in it, and your marketing strategy can allow for that. But it's certainly something this is a do as we say, not potentially as we do, because we're not very good at this at the moment. It is something that we are working on and we are trying to organise holidays as we speak, but it's something that it's very hard sometimes to put some space between you and your business. And I think the only way to actually make it happen is to have a really clear plan in place for how you're going to make that work. Whether it's working a 4-day week, actually working a 4-day week, not just saying you're going to work a 4-day week, or whether it's actually physically like leaving the business for a week or two at a time. So, Charlotte, what is your experience with taking time out?
I didn't used to, ever, at all. But I'm one of these people, I've always had a lot of things on the go.
Yeah.
All the time. So even when I was in employment, I've always had my photography business going on the side. So there used to be some summers where I'd be working every day, all summer. And then what would usually happen is I'd get ill. At some point, I'd go man down with either a bad cold or a sickness bug, which my body's saying to me, just lie down. Yeah. Just stop. Because it's so easy to get caught in the churn of things. Then you don't exercise properly, you don't eat properly, you don't sleep properly, and everybody has a limit.
Yeah.
It's at some point you will reach a limit where either you get really grumpy, you get really tired, your productivity suffers, and it's false economy.
100%. 100%. So I think that you and I are quite good at dipping out of the business during the week for a couple of hours to go and do other things, normally where we're 100% distracted and have to not think about it. But I think where we aren't so good is actually physically leaving the business for a weekend or a week or more.
Or a month, as some people do.
I know.
My idea.
There is a very lovely lady who we're actually going to be working with, and she takes a whole month out every year. And to be honest, I just want her to teach us the ways, because that to me is like gold standard. So in terms of how we actually we do facilitate holidays for other people. We perhaps don't facilitate them for ourselves, but we do facilitate breaks for other people from the point of view of sort of social media strategy, marketing strategy, and the tools that allow you to step away without your business becoming a ghost town. Now, this is potentially a problem that we see more in smaller businesses than larger businesses, because larger businesses, there tends to be somebody who can step in. But there is that element of the control, who are you going to give that responsibility to? But that's a slightly different thing. But when there is only, say, between 1 and 5 of you in a business, one person leaving for a week has potentially a massive impact on productivity, work levels for other people, and certainly, I think, probably some feelings of guilt when you do leave for a period of time.
That's a big thing, I think, with small businesses. It's the guilt factor. And people maybe not taking time out when they need to, because they feel bad for other people. Think, oh, they're going to have to cover that. They're going to have to deal with this for me. But with enough preparation, you can minimize the impact as much as you physically can by having the planning in place and knowing what's going to happen when you're not there. And it's all about a good handover. If you do a really good handover, what needs to happen that would come under your role when you're away, then you've done all you can.
Mm. And when you're on your own, when you're an individual, a sole trader, it's about trying to be as efficient as possible before you go away in terms of scheduling up your social media, pre-recording a few bits to go out, diving into your emails and looking, do we have funnels set up? Do we have automation set up? Is my out of office on? One of my biggest things is, if you are leaving the business, no matter how big or small, put an out of office on. Tell people you are not there, because people are very respectful of out of office emails, I think. People sort of go, oh, cool. And if they really want to persist, they'll contact the other person in your emails. Or if it's no other option but to wait for a week, they'll just have to wait for a week. So out of office, 100%. But what tools would you recommend in terms of automations that allow for breaks without the business appearing to be on like shutdown?
Well, you can definitely use social media scheduling tools, and we talked about these a lot. Things like Later and Hootsuite that are really helpful for keeping your business ticking over. Now, there is some debate as to whether you should do that or just embrace the fact that I'm away, there's going to be nothing happening for a week.
Yeah.
Deal with it, which some people do. Some people put an announcement out saying, I'm away. If it's a product-based business, get your orders in by this date, because otherwise they won't be fulfilled until this date. Make it really, really clear. And I think the bottom line is preparation and communication. So whichever route you take, if you take the route of, I'm going to go away, but I'm going to keep a presence ticking over online, use your email tool to set up any automation. So if you've got mailing list signups or free downloads on your website, anything like that, that they still go without any input from you. Use your scheduling tool to put any content out that needs to go out on social media, and then it ticks along. But I still think it's important to let people know that you're not in office, because the instant reaction to when a social media post comes is to feel like a mess person online. And people are getting more used to people scheduling stuff, but I think there's still that assumption that, well, if you're posting on social media, then you're working.
Yeah.
So I expect an answer now. And the best way to deal with that is just to communicate it. And you can have things like bots or autoresponders set up in your messaging tools on Facebook and Instagram that could put something along those lines out, saying, I'm out of office between these dates. This is what you could do in the meantime. If it's urgent contact, if you've got something in place, contact this person instead. Use those tools to communicate so people aren't getting frustrated thinking, oh, why is this business not responding? Because then what will happen is they'll go elsewhere.
Yeah.
You get hacked off and you just take your business elsewhere. People don't hang around very long online now.
No, and I think that's a massive fear factor for product-based businesses. Perhaps not so much for us in the service-based industry, because you tend to work within quite a specific niche, and waiting a week to speak to somebody, if you're looking for something quite specific, isn't necessarily an issue. But we have things like online booking systems, which allows people to book a discovery call. So if they've booked that, have had the ability to book that discovery call a couple of weeks in advance, that then means that they know that that's in the diary, and that's kind of closed that little door for them, and they will speak to you when you get back. But product-based businesses, yes, people move quite quickly, and I think it's a really interesting, and you just have to go with what you feel comfortable with from the point of view of either blacking out on social media, or potentially, even if you felt comfortable doing this, documenting a little bit your holiday, because that sort of reiterates the fact that I am not in work mode. But I think it is important to make people aware that you're away. But we know now that that having a break from posting content isn't necessarily the detrimental thing that people used to think it was. If you don't physically have the time to get your content scheduled up in advance, don't beat yourself up about it. Have the break, because that is more important. Because actually, content creation in particular and social media can be very, very draining. One thing I did want to discuss, and this is something that I think just needs talking about. I don't think there's no right or wrong answer on this one. But I, for example, when I'm away, I still give myself access to, now only on a phone normally. I don't tend to take my laptop with me because it's bulky. But I like to still have access to my emails and my work social media. And the reason for that is I like to be able to just have half a handle on what's going on. And that keeps my brain happy. And I actually find it easier to switch off knowing that everything's tickety-boo than I do if I don't know what's going on at all. Now, that's a little bit of the control freak in me. But I think it's an interesting one to sort of put on the table, is checking your emails once a day whilst you're on holiday a good thing or not? And actually, if it keeps you calm, is that a beneficial thing to do?
See, I am completely the opposite. I have learned over the years that I just need to cut myself off completely, because nothing drives me more mad than seeing something that I then can't action. And it comes a lot from what I do, because if you're on holiday, chances are you can get Wi-Fi and you can deal with stuff. For me, it's usually I'm doing other work. So I'm in the middle of a field photographing horses all day. An email comes in, someone's having an issue that requires me to be able to, I don't know, do something in Photoshop, which needs my laptop, which I don't have. What do?
Yeah.
I'd rather just not know.
If you are on holiday, you're unlikely to have the bandwidth to be uploading photos or similar.
Yeah, so it depends what you're doing, and I think it depends on your personality type and how you react to things, and if you're able to let go. Because you're right, it can be more stressful trying to go cold turkey, and you could end up really working yourself up and it's not beneficial. But then have you got someone you trust who could take the weight from you?
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, well, certainly you and I haven't yet been in a position, because of when you joined the business, we haven't actually been in a position where either of us have been able to go away for any period of time. So actually, it's not something that's yet come up, but it would be interesting, or it will be interesting when we are in a position where we can go away, as to how that, if actually we can both let go either way, kind of thing. I think we will be able to, although when we both go on holiday at the same time, that will be interesting. Well, therein lies a whole other thing, because going on holiday at the same time to the same place and not talking about work.
that's a problem in itself.
I think there's going to be enough other people to tell us to not talk about work.
Yeah. And another thing actually that we haven't mentioned yet, but I think has been a big factor for me, is having separate phones for work and personal.
That, haven't you?
Yeah, because before then I'd be logged in on 5 different Instagram accounts on my personal phone that would be giving me notifications and binging away at things I really didn't care about when I was skiing in Austria. And actually, but then, as you know, it's a monumental pain logging in and out of Instagram accounts when you've got to do verification when you're not the account holder and you need to get a code, etc. So it's easy to just leave them logged in. And he's driving me absolutely wild. Now, funnily enough, since I've had 2 phones, I've had less accounts to manage, so it hasn't been such an impact. But just being able to have emails, social media that's work related on one phone, you can just turn that phone off.
Yeah.
And it's all gone. Just
And
like
that's it. I think it's having that ability to disconnect, because you tried dual SIMing for a while, didn't you? So 2 SIM cards, 1 phone. Actually, you may as well just have had 1 phone, because
everything was coming into the same phone.
yeah, you still saw everything. And actually, I think, you know, joining the 2 phone club, I've had 2 phones for the last 8 years, 8, 9 years. And it's been brilliant, because it means that, like, you know, this very impractically large phone, when I'm with the horses or walking the dog or whatever, gets left at home, or certainly left tucked away, because it's physically too bulky to carry around. And it's the same on holiday. Now, I might take that phone on holiday with me, but I might literally just have a quick look at it in the morning and then just leave it in the chalet or wherever and check it, you know, very occasionally. Now, that one happens to have a better camera. So will I take it and have it on aeroplane mode? Probably, because I like taking the pictures.
Another interesting one actually is the ways in which you communicate with clients. This is probably both service-based and product-based, but I think a lot more service-based, where you have ongoing communications with people. And there are certain apps that people use just for work. So things like Voxer, Signal, Telegram, that are less common for day-to-day communications. I mean, WhatsApp Business now, which is a separate app to normal WhatsApp, which lets you have your business number and your personal number separate. Those kind of things, which mean you can just segregate work communications as best you can.
Yeah.
The biggest problem I find is Facebook Messenger.
100%.
When you get drawn into group chats about work, and there's no way of filtering.
And it's very easy to miss stuff.
Yeah, personal Facebook and work Facebook.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you might go on holiday, ignore all your work chats, and then a week later come back and who knows what you've missed. So that, I think Facebook's probably the most difficult one. There's a lot of us use it for communication a lot of the time. But it depends on the business and the industry you're in, because there are some big businesses, they wouldn't dream of using Facebook Messenger for their communication. No. They encrypted things.
Absolutely not. But it's sort of, it's how we quite often keep in contact, not casually, but for just ad hoc stuff with clients, rightly or wrongly. Now, that's on both sides. And I certainly know that the person that we have a lot of Facebook chats with is very good at segregating work conversations and personal conversations, and will sort of, I would imagine, without asking her, I don't know, but I would imagine will either read something and temporarily ignoring it, or just not reading it until she was in a work headspace. But also, I do, and I think this is something that we have to remember: when you own a business, you do have to expect that an element of you will always struggle to disconnect from it, because at the end of the day, it's your thing. Like, it is, and if it's not hard for you to disconnect from it, I would have alarm bells about passion level. You can just walk away 100% and just go, see you later, guys, with no concerns.
And nothing in place.
You've got it down and I'm very jealous. Or, you know, yes, exactly. The caveat of that is, if you've got everything planned out and, you know, you've been super duper organized, yes, 100% walk away, fantastic. But if you can just sort of drop it for 48 hours and not think about it, yeah, I wouldn't beat yourself up if you do think about your business when you're on holiday, because we all do. And if you don't, you're lying, I think.
And to be fair, holiday is usually the time, and it's the same with like walking the dogs and riding the horses, when all the best ideas happen.
Yes.
So absolutely. The best thing to do is have a notepad or voice notes on your phone or whatever it is. Just put the ideas down, and then you can bank them for later. Because then you're not stressing about, oh, what if I don't act on this amazing idea I've just had?
Yeah.
So put them in a safe place, whether it's digital or paper, and you know you can then come back to it when you're back in work mode.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing. That's the brilliant thing about taking time out, and that's what we've been trying to do a bit more of, whether it's on a weekly basis or weekends or potentially a whole week off, is when we take time out from the business, in the business, we go off and we do other things, and it opens the doors, I think, for the creativity to pop back up. You know, my best ideas, and I said this to you the other day, we were actually on the phone to each other in the car, and I was like, this idea, this idea, this idea. And actually, when I come away from my desk, that's when the true creativity comes back, because I'm not thinking, sort that, do this, write that, send that. I'm just free flowing, and my little brain's going off to all the different places, going and finding information instead of, I think, where loops have been opened and it's desperate to go and find things to close that loop. So yeah, I think, well, this business wouldn't exist had I not been lay on a beach in Ibiza, put it that way.
The other brainwaves happen.
If we are being totally honest about things, if I had not been laid on a beach 3.5 years ago in Ibiza, we would not be sat here today.
You got to let the brain do its thing.
100%.
And sometimes that is. And even when I have worked in corporate environments and things, and my partner now doing a busy corporate job, sometimes we'll just go, I've got to go play with the dog, or take a walk, or just do something other than staring at the laptop screen, because you get the haze descends, you just keep responding to emails, and you just get in a rut. So that's why things like Pomodoro timers that a lot of people use. I want to say it's 25 minutes. I might be wrong. Correct. Yeah. I know. I'm pretty sure Evie uses these.
Like 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break.
Yeah. So, and there's all sorts of apps you can get that do it. There's YouTube videos that are 25 minutes long that will literally just be like a countdown clock, and then go, okay, now take a break. And that's the quite common method to increase productivity, where you work really hard for those 25 minutes or however long it is, and then just step away, make a cup of tea, fuss the dog, whatever it is, just to break up the day, because otherwise it's just that rut of just sitting in front of your laptop, and suddenly 6 hours have gone by and you haven't done nothing.
Yeah, my optician said exactly that. I've been having some trouble with my eyeballs, and she said 20 minutes actually, 20 minutes, and then you have to stare 20 feet in distance or something, and blink 20 times. That's what she said.
Very specific. But there's all kinds of, it's not just productivity, it's our eyeballs, it's our backs.
Yes.
Your all-round physical health is so intrinsically linked to the way you work, and especially if there are so many people working from home at the moment, it has a real impact. You forget that you're not moving around, you're snacking all the time.
Yeah, exactly. We sort of go into like almost sloth mode, but like, and that's where, so this is another interesting one, is working on, I know some people who work really well on time blocking, so they will time block clients, activities, etc. Now, I don't work particularly well with that, because when you tell me I've got constraints on something, all my distracted brain wants to do is do something entirely different. But that works really well for some people, is time blocking, so that they know that they've got downtime planned for that afternoon. Now, I suppose to a certain extent with us, it's like walking the dogs, going to the gym, that kind of stuff. We sort of commit to those things. So that's a little bit of time blocking. But some people literally time block their whole week or their whole working week.
I thought my Google Calendar was impressive. And I had a friend who I was at uni with who's, unsurprisingly, military.
Yeah.
Every minute of his day was scheduled.
He's accounted for.
Everything. From 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. pretty much.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. But for some people, that really works.
Yeah.
That's the golden ticket. It's very regimented, and you've got to have the discipline to stick to it, because then the caveat is, if you miss it, something runs over and then it has a knock-on effect in your day, you might get a bit stressed out because you're not meeting the guidelines you set yourself. So to maintain that level of rigidity is a serious commitment, and I wouldn't say, oh, just go straight in doing that if you're not used to that kind of way of working. And like you said, it doesn't work for you.
No.
Because your brain goes, well, now you want me to do that, I'm going to not do it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's just how it is.
The one thing that I am learning to how to do, and this will grow and change, I think, but one thing I'm trying to learn to do is when something is important to me, like walking the dogs or going and riding or something fun stuff, is making sure if somebody rings and says, can we have a meeting at such and such time, that I don't go, oh yeah, of course, and then move that thing or cancel that thing.
It's a non-negotiables, isn't it? I think that's something.
Yeah, it's sticking to the non-negotiables and realizing that it's okay to say, actually, no, I'm busy at that time. You don't need to tell them, actually, no, I'm busy at that time. I'm walking the dogs. You're just busy. Whatever it is, you're busy. and just drawing a line and saying, no, I can't do that. I can do this instead. But it is being a bit stricter with your, I mean, in comparison to what I was like 3 years ago to now, I'm quite strict with it, but I was awful, and I'm getting there now. Which is why I try when I'm like walking the dogs or riding or going to do exercise, I try and do it with something that I can't wiggle out of. So meeting somebody, booking into a class, riding with somebody else, it means that I'm committed in a way that is difficult to change.
Yeah, accountability. It always comes down to that, and it could be down to things like, obviously we've got a shared calendar. So if you put in that you're doing Pilates and then you're not a Pilates, why are you a Pilates?
Yeah, and I think that's it, and that's where diary blocking does work for me. Is looking after my free time. That's a good thing. And I think it's the other thing is it's sort of how you're, and I posted about this the other day. I was going to Pilates at like 10:30 in the morning because I do sometimes. It was last night. I was working at 8:30. You were too, but we quite like, you know, every now and again a couple of hours in the evening, because I think we probably both work quite well in the evening. And also, if I do the fun things in the morning, they definitely happen. If I schedule them for the evening, I quite often go, nah. Which is obviously not a healthy thing to do. But yeah, I do think make sure you ring fence that free time, whether it's a week or whether it's an hour. You have to look after it because it's very easy. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it was with a girl called Grace Beverley, who I respect hugely and have followed for a few years, and actually the owner of Neon Organics, which is the lovely candle and like essential oil company. And she was saying, when you own your own business, when you say, oh, I've had a really rough 3 days of like crazy work, that is entirely your fault. No one else is to blame for that. If you're complaining about your working week and how busy you are or what have you, that's on you. And I sat there and I was like, oh, but you know, client demands and this and that and that and that. And I was like, well, actually, no, she's totally right.
You can always say no.
You can set expectations. You can always say no. You can always push back. And you have to protect that time, whether it's time to cook, time to eat with family.
Time to eat, full stop.
Time to eat, full stop.
I remember when I was working at the university at one point during busy times, none of us taking lunch. Everyone was literally just working through or eating lunch at your desk, you know, not actually taking a lunch break. And it got to the point where it was ridiculous. And
that's an interesting. So we've obviously both come from corporate backgrounds. Now, most of my corporate experience actually wasn't sat in an office with other people. I was on my own, in my car most of the time. But when I was in a corporate office, there was this competitive, who would get to the office earliest, who would leave latest, who was sat at their desk eating their lunch while still making calls. And that's a culture thing. And I mentioned to you just before the start of this, one thing that interests me is companies, I think Google does this, but there are a certain number of companies who offer their employees totally flexible working, as much holiday, like unlimited holiday, at any time that they want. And I do wonder whether that actually breeds a positive work-life balance or actually a negative one, because you don't want to be seen to be taking a break or taking holiday. It'd be interesting. We've obviously not been in an environment, I'd love Google, are you listening? I'll come and work for you.
What's the culture like at your?
Yeah,
but I think that it's a culture thing. I think if everybody in the company is very comfortable with the fact that you can take as much time as you need, and the pandemic has been a great one for that, with how different companies reacted to flexi working, home working, and it's really shone a light on who has a better culture for their employees and who maybe doesn't. People who are, you need to all be back in the office right this second, we don't care, there's not a job if you don't come back in, that kind of attitude, versus the people who are facilitating, if you're not comfortable to come into an office, you don't have to, that's fine. There's some very different attitudes out there, and it's been a really interesting, horrendous but interesting last nearly 18 months now. And I think everybody's priorities have shifted. I know IKEA is still out of stock in all office stuff because everyone's got home offices now, and it's continuing. I think it's here to stay.
But I think it is, but I think with that needs to be education around how to. Now, probably if you're working for a big corporate, it might be easier to draw beginning of the day and end of the day, because if you're working with other colleagues, they're going to be switching off at 5 or 5:30 or what have you. But I just hope that we don't slip into that 24/7 working mentality, because yes, we sometimes work strange hours, but we've also got partners who work strange hours, weekends, evenings, sometimes they go away, etc. So there might be days where Mike's been on nights, so we'll go out for lunch, a long lunch, a 2-3 hour lunch, or we might have to disappear off to Argos for a couple of hours, and that's okay. And therefore I will then work a bit later or a bit earlier, one of those things. But I'm still taking that time out. I think for people who are new to and are still working for somebody else, I just hope they don't slip into just working all the time or feeling that they should be working all the time.
It's a difficult balance, and it takes a lot of self-discipline. I think it's really helpful having other people to keep you accountable, like we were saying before about making plans with other people and just checking in on your friends as well. If someone's gone quiet and you haven't heard from the WhatsApp group chat for a month, and they're normally there a lot, and, are they okay? Are they overworked? Just check in on people, because you never know what's going on with someone, so it doesn't hurt to ask, or make plans with people. If you can see someone's getting frazzled and that they haven't had a break for a long time, be the one to suggest, what, let's go out for lunch, let's have that coffee, come on, let's do it. Just make it non-negotiable.
And I will maybe round this off with one of our Q3 goals is for both of us I'm pointing, both of us, to go on holiday. That is our Q3 goal. We will have booked, well, I think you've got one in the pipeline. I might also have the same one in the pipeline. But is to one of our Q3 business goals is for us to go on holiday. And that sounds ridiculous, but we actually have to make it a business goal of ours to make sure that we take time out. Otherwise, we won't be sat here this time next year, because we will have combusted.
Yeah, we don't want that.
So anybody who wants to join us on the Q3 goal of booking a holiday or booking time off and wants to be kept accountable, I feel like there could be a WhatsApp group or something for this. I'm not quite sure how we'll keep people accountable, but come on.
Time out group.
Let's have a time out group. it might be that we can potentially help each other out as well. You know, if you are a small business owner and you just want somebody to keep half an eye on your emails, it might be that we can do like a bit like dog sitting, but the other way, you know, but like just swapping.
Yeah, swap businesses for a bit.
Swap businesses for a bit. But that's the kind of thing that as small business owners we need to do. We definitely need to do. I need that goal. 9 years, I think, was my last. Oh my word! Well, there you go. Holidays for everyone.
Yeah, especially after the year we've had.
Yes. I think we should do an Oprah. You get a holiday, you get a holiday, you get a holiday.
If we won the lottery, we would.
We would get you all a holiday. But until then, we will try and facilitate holidays and we will make it a priority. Deal? Do we have a deal, everyone? Are we all going to take a break? Even if it's early next spring. And I got a business call on that holiday. Even if you're booking into next spring, if you've got it booked, you can start planning for it. If it's not booked, which will never happen.
That's the thing. Yeah, the commitment is key, I think.
And the further in advance you book it, the more prepared you can get. Or you can be like me, who will be like, yeah, I'm going to book it really in advance and be super prepared. And then 3 days before, be like, ah! But do as we say, not as we do, as caveated in the description of this video. So yeah, if anybody wants to be in a holiday accountability group or a timeout accountability group, let us know. We'll see what we can facilitate. And we will see you next week. Next week we are talking about...
Don't look at me.
I don't know what we're talking about.
You made the graphic.
Ah, that sounds like buck passing to me. I can't remember what we're talking about. God, that we sound a little bit relaxed about it all, don't we? Next week we are talking about... I don't know. Can't even find it there.
Something really important.
Something super important. Which
so important.
is so important. I'm just scrolling through to keeping content fresh.
Okay.
There we go. Keeping content fresh. Next week. And keep your content fresh by not knowing what your content is. No.
One way to do it.
Not that. Definitely.
But
not.
also, is it okay to recycle content? Will be another part of that discussion.
Is taking a break a great way to keep your content fresh?
Mm.
Right, we shall see you next week. And we've got a bit giddy today. It's the last week of Command Your Content. That's why we're giddy. we've been on overdrive for 6 weeks. So we will see you all next week, and we will be talking about keeping content fresh.
Thank you for joining us.